Hi, fifth graders. I hope you had a good weekend. Today we will be reading chapter 14 of Pillage by Ch. Let's remember what happened in chapter 13. Remember that they went into the conservatory and it started raining really bad and thunder and lightning, and they found a way down into a tunnel, and the tunnel led into the basement. So now they have found two ways to get into the conservatory, through the plants and through the basement. Excerpt from section 7 of The Green Got Not as recorded by Daniel Phillips. The victims will be tending to their lives, and without a signal or sound, the pillaging will begin. Chapter 14. How long until now? It rained for 3 days straight. Then the temperature dropped and it began to snow. Although I suppose snow is too mild a word, it dumped. The statues in the driveway were completely hidden by piles of the white stuff. One morning we couldn't open the door because it was frozen shut. Once we had managed to open it, the snow was 6 feet high and blocking our way out. Miley had clapped her hands and claimed it had never snowed so hard in King's Plot before. Thomas argued that it had, insisting she was too old to remember properly. I wanted desperately to get back to the conservatory to see what the rain and snow had done to the shed and stones, but the weather was too vicious. I tried going through the tunnels, but on my first try, I got lost. I found my way on my second try, but the part of the tunnel where the water had flowed in was frozen and I couldn't get through. The only advantage to the huge snowstorm was that school was canceled. Of course, then I had nothing to do but wander the house and see if my key would open any doors. Fortunately for me, it opened most of them. Unfortunately for me, most of the locked doors opened to nothing but empty and abandoned rooms. Wayne had brought me a skateboard, and I wasted a couple of afternoons skating around the house. It was fun, but I wanted Kate to be here so that I could show off. It wasn't as satisfying performing for Miley and her one good eye. I wanted to talk to my uncle again, but my key wouldn't unlock any of the doors that opened up to the 7th floor. I tried to pick one of the locks with a screwdriver, but the lock was so solid, all I managed to do was scratch up the wood and bend the screwdriver. I spent a lot of time in the kitchen listening to Thomas and Miley squabble with each other, and Wayne complain about how the snow was keeping her from her boyfriend, Ben, who lived in King's Plot. It was the 4th day of the snowstorm when the flakes finally stopped falling. I helped Thomas clear the path to the garage where he was able to get the snow plow and began clearing the drive. I think it's stopping for good, I said, as I came in from shoveling. The only snow clothes I could find in the house were old, outdated things that someone had already worn many times before. They were all way too big for me. I took off my jacket and hat and threw them on the floor. I suppose it's supposed to warm up a bit tomorrow, Wayne added. I think it looks beautiful, Miley claimed as she kneaded a large ball of dough. We've needed the moisture. I looked at Miley as if she were crazy. It seemed to me that all grown-ups were programmed to say things that sounded grateful no matter how difficult the situation. Needed the moisture? I questioned, hopping up to take a seat on the counter. I've never seen any place so irriguous. Irriguous? Wayne raised an eyebrow. Sorry, I apologize. It's that stupid dictionary you got me. Wayne smiled. Well, the water won't hurt, Miley insisted. I liked Miley. She was like the grandmother I never had, or more like the grandmother I might have had but never met. The bell chimed through the kitchen. Miley and Wayne looked over at the ringing bell with surprise. I've already brought him lunch, Miley said quietly. Who? I asked. Your uncle, Wayne answered. That's the dome bell. Maybe he wants some company, I suggested. I had never seen Miley really laugh before. I'll go, Wayne sighed. I'm coming, I said, jumping down from the counter. Wayne said nothing to stop me from following. I didn't speak until we were past the third floor. He just sits up there all day, pretty much. He never comes down. He never surprises you by showing up in the kitchen and asking for something to drink or asking if he can make cookies. Wayne rolled her eyes. No. Why? I grew up here. She started again, demonstrating quite clearly how an adult could never give you a straight answer. My mother worked for your uncle. She died a number of years ago. I'm sorry about that, I said honestly. Wayne stopped climbing the stairs and smiled at me. It's no fun, that's for sure. But I guess you know all about that. Ever since I can remember, Aaron has stayed up in the dome. But why? I asked, frustrated that I couldn't get a straight answer. He's watching, she whispered. Watching what? We're not sure, she admitted. The best we can figure is that he feels something will attack by air, and he's watching. And he's the watchman. So he's crazy? A lot of weird things have happened in this house. I was so relieved to hear someone else admit that. I don't know how many of those things have to do with your uncle's condition, she added. Strange things can happen in any house. Miley says he entered the dome the day your mother left. Really? Miley and Thomas have managed the manor for him. Since my mom left? I asked in amazement. Wayne nodded. I couldn't believe it. My uncle probably didn't know what a microwave or the internet was, much less what to do with an iPhone or a Wii. I had seen his room and wondered how one person could exist in such a small place for so long. How does he shower? We bring him hot water and a sponge. Miley takes him meals. Thomas buys him clothes. I read to him on occasion. Read to him? There are a few books your uncle likes read to him over and over. What about the bathroom? Did you see the pot? Ew! I gagged. Yeah, Wayne said, sounding equally bothered. Imagine having to clean it. Tell me again why you like working here? Wayne smiled. It's only until I've saved enough money to travel. Come on, he's waiting. I don't think I want to go, I said. Come on, Wayne waved, taking the steps two at a time. We crossed the 6th floor and reached the arched doors. Wayne pulled out her set of keys and opened the lock. Wait here, she ordered. She climbed the spiral stairs, and I could hear her muffled voice saying something. She climbed back down and said, You're up. What? Turns out you were right, she smiled. He just wanted to talk to someone. I'm not changing his pot, I insisted. Hopefully he won't ask you to. I climbed up the spiral stairs and through the trap door. I looked at everything with new eyes, realizing that my uncle had seen and used nothing but what was in this room for the last 20 years, including the pot. Hello, I said, closing the trap door. It was colder than before. The violent snowstorm had left the dome feeling like a freezer. My uncle stared at me, his brown eyes churning. His hair looked longer and his beard even wiry than when I had last seen him. Beck, he threw a fur-lined robe at me. Uncle, I pulled it on, grateful for the warmth. Call me Aaron, he said sadly. Aaron. There was a nice awkward pause. I cleared my throat. You wanted to talk to me? No clouds, he pointed. The sky was remarkably clear. They'll be blowing in from behind us, he said. Oh, I said, looking at the window. Mystery solved. Sometimes I think the weather is trying to force me to move down into the house, Aaron said absently. I guess that wouldn't be the worst thing, I tried. I mean, it's a lot warmer downstairs. I've been up here for many years, he said mournfully. I wanted to tell him about the conversation I had with Wayne and the information I knew, but I kept quiet. I've not been lonely before. Oh, I said, not knowing where this conversation was going. I miss Francine, he admitted. Me too. I had been around crazy people before. My mother had a number of boyfriends who had given me the willies, and we had often lived near neighbors who made me uncomfortable enough that I'd walk a block away from their place. Certain people just give off bad vibes. My uncle lived on the top of a mansion, looking at the sky and using a pot for a bathroom. Arguably, he should have been at the top of my creepy list. but there was something familiar and honest about him that made me not worry. She was an amazing person, he said. She was, I said, remembering the time my mother had locked me out of the apartment for 2 days because she thought I was somebody else. She gave up a lot. I didn't know if what he was saying had she had sacrificed a lot, or if he was insinuating that she threw in the towel too often. I felt the second definition was more fitting. My uncle gripped his staff tightly. I watched his knuckles flash white and color slowly return to them. It hasn't snowed like this in 10 years. That's what Miley was saying, I said. He looked at me and banged his weird staff against the floor. He spotted a flock of birds in the sky and watched them closely as they flew by. If it weren't for this dome over my head, I could be snatched up, he whispered. They'd snatch me up and it'd be over. Those birds? I asked, confused. He looked at me as if I were the mentally disturbed one. Don't tell the others about my condition, he insisted. I won't, I promised, reluctant to point out to anyone just how crazy my uncle was. Stay out of the gardens. I nodded. And the basement, he added. I thought you said there was no basement. There isn't, but stay out just in case, I asked. Aaron looked at his staff and stared at the markings that ran up and down the wood. How is school? It's been canceled for the last few days because of the snow. Simon will make you do more work if it hadn't snowed. Simon? I asked, not sure if Aaron was talking about a person or if we were suddenly playing a game of Simon Says. I miss your mother, he said again, dejectedly. Sadly, so did I, and never quite as much as I did at that moment. I wanted to leave, but Aaron looked unbearably lonely. I miss a lot of things, I said. It sucks to be alone sometimes. Aaron looked at me kindly. I miss my mom, but I think I miss my father even more. Aaron shifted and sat down. He seemed to be listening, so I kept going. I mean, I did a lot of things with my mom, I said. We'd go to movies and restaurants and parks. I knew that if I served my mom peas, she'd eat them 4 at a time. Or that if I complimented her hair, she would blush. I knew a ton of dumb little things about her, but I don't know anything about my dad. I guess I just miss what I should know. The wind blew through the open room, and my uncle refused to leave. It was kind of nice moment between the confused kid and the weird hermit. You have brown hair, Aaron said, as if noticing me for the first time. I do, I replied. After another silence, Aaron spoke again. Your mother would be proud of you, Beck. I think she was. Aaron smiled. I said goodbye and climbed down the stairs where Wayne was waiting for me. What did he want to talk about? She asked me. Guy stuff? I joked. Oh. We talked about soccer and how poorly his team was doing this year. Really? What do you think we talked about? I said, bothered by Wayne's question. He's a bit eccentric. I know, Wayne said. When I heard I had an uncle, I was pretty excited, I admitted. I never knew my father, and the thought of having someone who was related to me look after me was kind of nice, kind of comforting. But I think he might just be a bit beyond crazy. Your uncle cares about you, Wayne said. I stared at her, amazed at the logic adults used at times. I remembered something else I missed about my mother, the way we had learned to communicate almost silently with each other. Come on, Wayne mentioned. Miley's made a cake. I sighed. I guess a cake would have to do. I was sick of the snow. Hey, my friends, that's the end of chapter 14. Tomorrow we will be reading chapter 15. See you then.